Good morning and welcome to SnapTech IT's monthly webinar for April 2024. My name is Ted Hulsey. I'm Chief Revenue Officer for SnapTech IT and your host for today's event. Thanks for joining in for the live session. Please hit us with questions as we go along. This webinar will be recorded and circulated to all registrants. You can always visit us on our YouTube channel for all of our content on demand. The topic for today is top 3 ways ChatGPT could be saving your business time and money and how to master them. Today, I am joined by SnapTech's co-founder and president, Sean Brown. Sean, welcome to the webinar.
Thank you, Ted. Thanks for hosting this with us. I am really excited about this topic. I know this is something that you and I have been playing with for, feels like forever, but I know this has only been out for a year or so. So just excited to dive in and kind of share some practical examples and some knowledge with everybody. So it should be good.
Yeah, so Sean is a ChatGPT power user, I would say. He's got it like open throughout the day, and I'm in meetings with him on occasion. He's like, look at this, look what I just produced. And so anyway, we're going to share the practical applications and uses for ChatGPT, how you can be using them in your business today in a lot of different departments. One thing we always want to do on our webinars is spend 30 seconds to about a minute just explaining who SnapTech IT is. We are a security first managed IT provider with operations in Atlanta, Phoenix, and San Francisco, California, and we serve clients nationwide. Our point of view is that many organizations and their employees are frustrated by technology throughout the day, that technology gets in the way. And our point of view is that technology should be solving your problems, not creating them. And part of what we're trying to do with these webinars is to take some of the more thorny topics, more complex things, bleeding edge things, and hopefully deliver a little bit of education and insight so that you and your organization can understand how to start leveraging technology. We serve our clients in 2 different ways. For smaller organizations that are traditionally, say, less than 75 employees, there's usually not an IT department, or there's usually nobody who has IT on their badge, if you will. And for those clients, we provide fully managed IT, where we do literally everything that's IT and technology related for the organization on a fully outsourced basis. For larger organizations, companies and organizations that have anywhere from 75 to 500 employees, we deliver co-managed IT, where there's usually an internal IT department or IT manager or IT director, both situations we provide outsourced services, but the scope is different depending on the size and sophistication of the organization. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Sean to go through our agenda and then get us through some of the first couple use cases that we're going to explore today.
Great, thanks for that, Ted. Okay, so our agenda and what we're going to kind of talk about today is just a little bit about kind of what is ChatGPT. We'll talk a little bit about the paid version of ChatGPT and the free version, so just kind of give you a little insight into what the differences are there, and then kind of how to manage ChatGPT. So we're gonna talk about a couple of things that maybe you've heard about or maybe you haven't heard about. I think they're really kind of interesting and kind of cool, but creating personas inside ChatGPT, and so think like personality, if you will. A little bit on prompt engineering and how you kind of leverage that, and then feeding ChatGPT kind of your brand and voice and having it learn about your organization. So that's part of what we're going to do when we talk about kind of managing ChatGPT. And then we're going to create some content, and so using ChatGPT in your business. So we've got 3 different use cases. So what better way to demonstrate this technology than to break out and show you some use cases of how we did it. I was not confident enough in my ability to do a live demo, so we did it ahead of time and have to just kind of put them into the slides. So hopefully, demo gremlins are going to jump up and get us today because it's just in our PowerPoint. But we're going to go through those case studies, a little bit of webinar content, and I'll show you a custom GPT that I built as part of this example. So, all right, so let's jump into it. So, where is help needed most? So these are some of the things that we see a lot, right? A change in a process for our people. A lot of people are kind of frustrated with the generic results that they get. Ted, I know you and I have talked a good bit about this as we have used these kind of technologies to generate content. You know, the need to make it sound more like you or kind of have your tone. You know, any input or thoughts on that? I know this is something you and I bounce a good bit around on.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I see happening a lot is there's lots of folks who are playing around with this technology. A lot of people are like kind of see it as like a silver bullet to eliminate all the work from a particular task, and that's really not where we are today. You're not going to get a good outcome if you just
Yeah,
ask ChatGPT or any generative AI tool to try to create something from scratch. You're going to get a very generic result, and you're going to sound a lot like everybody else. And what we're trying to do in the marketplace, I think, in most of our businesses, is to stand out, to create interesting content, interesting insights, to stand out from the competition, right? So you don't want to use these tools and end up sounding just like everybody else. But what we're going to hopefully show you today is how you take the best of both worlds. That
yeah,
you know that where you invest in the tool, you know, your own insights, your own voice, your own knowledge, your own notes and outlines, and you know, details from different things you have in your business, and then you're able to use a generative AI tool like ChatGPT as like a turbocharger or a boosting solution that makes you more productive, makes you allows you to create more content or work more efficiently. But you've got to learn how to use the tool and
yeah,
and and input to it. So that's really one of the big challenges we're trying to solve, I think, today.
yeah, absolutely. So, you know, ChatGPT can't do it all. You've got to be able to kind of prompt it and help it better understand kind of what output you're trying to get. So we're going to go through that, and then like I said, we're also going to talk about kind of building a custom GPT. So I don't even know if a lot of people realize that this is even an option or a thing that you can do. But one of my case studies and things that we're going to go through is I'm going to show you exactly how I just built a sample one, but you can hopefully take that and see where you could go build other things for your organization as well. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the paid version versus the free version. So everybody can go out right now to OpenAI and sign up for a free version of ChatGPT. The paid version is $20 a month, and so it's a little bit different. It's you get access to what's called GPT-4 versus the free version that's still running on, I believe, 3.5. So the free version, the big difference is the knowledge is only up to January of 2022. So there's no like integration capabilities into like other applications, and I'll kind of show you a little bit of that here in a minute as well. You're also kind of restricted, so you can do about 40 different kind of messages about every 3 hours. So if you're just using the free version, don't be surprised if it prompts you and says, hey, you're using me too much, and it kind of stops you and forces you to take a break on it. The other thing that you'll see whenever you're using the free version is you'll run into it'll be slow during some high traffic times, and you can't create these custom GPTs like what we're going to show as a demo here in a minute. Now, the paid version has got access to some really cool APIs. I think you're going to start seeing more and more API integrations with GPT or with ChatGPT. Like one of the use cases that I hear a lot is, you know, Ted, I don't know if you have this, you know, debate in your house. I know we have it in our house. You know, what are we cooking for dinner, and you know, how are we planning our dinner menu, you know, for the week at home? So a cool use case, and one of the things that I see coming is the ability to have ChatGPT not only create you a menu, but also create you a shopping list. And an example of like an API interface may be out to like Instacart And so it'll create your menu, create your shopping list, interface in with Instacart, and then just go buy it and ship it directly to your house, and you'll be done. So that's where this is kind of going with some of these interactions with APIs. So I think that's really cool. You can also use an interface to tie it into the internet and do real live searching, and I'll show you that in an example here in a minute. Faster response time, the vocabulary is larger. You have access to custom GPTs. Again, I've mentioned that a number of times. I'll show you exactly what I mean here in a minute. And then you'll also have access to some really cool tools like DALL-E image generator. And this is where I threw in a little bit of a bonus content, Ted. So this is my curveball I'm throwing. I just want to give you an example of what a custom GPT could look like. This is one that's called DALL-E. And you can see my prompt where I'm using it to generate images. So really cool technology. So I just said, hey, give me a mountain cabin sitting next to a lake, and you can see the images that this custom GPT was able to create for me. So you could do logos, you could do all kinds of things just using this technology. So the ability to create not only content, but images is going to be really cool. I think this is the worst that it's ever going to be. It's only going to get better from here. So, all right, that was my bonus content. Now we'll get back to the our regularly scheduled program. So how to manage ChatGPT. All right, so we're going to talk about these kind of personas, and the best way I thought to be able to do it is just to show you how we were doing that. So I believe definitely in 2 of our examples, and maybe all 3, we show you how you can kind of create a persona, and then how you can prompt this to get the best result that you want and out of it, where it also kind of has a little bit of your brand and voice to it. So let's go to the next one. Okay, so here's what we're going to do. This is just kind of a sample or an idea that I had that would be an interesting little demo. So we're going to use ChatGPT to build a custom, what's called GPT, for your HR team, so they can utilize it to streamline creating job postings. So that's just the demo. You could think of all kinds of other examples where you could do this, but hopefully you'll kind of grasp the concept of what we're talking about. So we'll brand our GPT with a name. We'll create an image for it and a desired tone. So then we're going to feed our GPT some information about our company, and I'll show you that here in the demo here in a second. What our core values. We'll tell it to go read our website so that it learns more about us and our company. So it uses that information as it builds our job descriptions. Then we're going to feed it, and we're going to tell it what questions that we always want it to ask whenever someone from our HR or hiring manager is using this tool to build a job description. And we're going to show you where I loaded up my own template that we use, just as an example. So I was able to say, hey, here's a sample template. I want you to use this template as you create, or at least this format, if you will, as you create job descriptions. And then we're going to create it and we're going to test it out. So let's jump into my screenshotted demo. So this is us building a custom GPT. So we go to the thing called a GPT builder. And remember, you've got to have the paid version of ChatGPT in order to be able to do this. So you can see here in my demo, I'm saying, hey, I want to build this job descriptor for Snaptech IT. And it's asking me, hey, you want to call it job builder? And I was like, no, let's call it Snaptech IT job description. It then prompts me and says, hey, how's this image look? Does this look like a good image you want to use for your application? I'm like, yeah, I like it. Let's go to the next. So then it goes, hey, let's define this. Let's make it a little better. So, what kind of tone should we use? And you can see where I am helping it with its persona. So the default persona in ChatGPT is a professional kind of friendly tone. I'm telling it, hey, I want you to, in these job ads, I want you to be casual and I want you to be upbeat. And so it's learning and using that kind of prompt to help it as it creates these kind of job descriptions for us. The next thing that we're going to do is it's asking me if there's any kind of specifics. And I then took and loaded up some information about our core values so that it knows what our core values are and what makes us uniquely us as it pertains to creating a job description. So you can take any kind of information that you want from your company and learn and teach it about yourself. Okay. The next thing that I told it is, hey, every time you do this, I want you to collect things like a job description, a title. We've got multiple locations, so I want you to ask what location, whether it's full-time, status, any kind of relevant work experience, hours, salary, reporting manager, and then the job description. The next thing I did was say, hey, go out to my website and go learn more about us. So this is one of the interactions or kind of API interfaces that I was able to kind of plug in. So you can see it's using a plugin, and it's going out and reading our website to learn more about Snaptech IT. So this whole time it is like learning about, and we are kind of building our own little GPT engine, if you will. And so I'm trying to teach it and have it learn about us. So the next thing I did was say, hey, here's just a sample template of the format that we like to use for our job description. So I am teaching it right here, and it's learning what our format looks like. So that's kind of an example of what that looks like. Then it says, hey, here's a template. I understand what you're after. This is a sample of what it would kind of look like. So that's kind of interesting and neat. And then I've saved it. And so now, whenever I go out to ChatGPT, over in my left-hand menu up at the top, I've got custom GPTs that we've built. And one of them is called the Snaptech IT job description. So you can see it was created by me. And now let's go use this to create a new job description. So it's built. It knows about our company. It knows about our core values. It knows about what's important for us. It knows the template that we like to use whenever we create a job description. And you can see me prompting it here. Hey, let's create a job description for a system administrator. And so it says, okay, great. And you can see where it now is asking me to make sure I provide it all of the information that when I taught the GPT to ask. So it's asking things about location, employment status, experience, things like that. And so you can see down below the last little prompt there, I'm telling it, hey, it's going to be located in our Georgia office or our Tempe office. It's full-time. Experience is 2 to 4 years, working hours. And then this is interesting. I did this on purpose, but I put our salary range as $10,000 to $20,000 for this position, just because I wanted to see what would happen. So if you click next, you'll see that this thing is smart enough to realize, hey, 10 to 20 seems pretty low for a full-time system administrator in the U.S. Typically, salaries are higher for that. And so I was then able to ask it, well, okay, well, what's an average salary range for a system administrator? And so it tells me, gives me some stats about, hey, it's typically a $60,000 to $80,000 range, gives me some other information. I say, okay, great. Then let's make the range 60 to 80,000. I then prompt it and show it some technical skills, like I want them to include some Microsoft, and Apple operating systems, Office 365, security, and just a couple other things that are relevant about the job. You can see where it's telling me, perfect, let's put all these together and build this job. So click next for me. So here is the job description that it created, where it knows about Snaptech IT. It was able to kind of pull in that information. It pulled in and built the responsibilities, the required skills, benefits, things like that, and the ability to apply. So this is us just, again, as a demo, kind of an example of showing you a little bit about creating a persona a little bit about, creating a custom GPT in order to build, a simple, job description. But you could do all kinds of other things. Like we've gone on to create one of these to help us build blogs, so it knows internally kind of who we are. There's lots of different use cases that you can kind of think of to create your own GPT kind of applications. So.
Yeah, so I want to just jump in and make sure, like, the beauty of this kind of pops out, right? That Sean's an expert on using the tool. You're using the premium version of the product, and you're always going to have a situation, and most organizations are confronting this today, where you're going to have internal experts on using some of this technology on how to get work done, and then you're going to have a lot of people who are the doers, or the people grinding out, like you may hire 10 or 20 people a year, and the person who's your recruiter may or may not have time to understand how to use ChatGPT in their daily job. But what Sean's just done is he's created a templated driven robot, if you will, robot writer that can come alongside the recruiter, and all the recruiter has to do is answer 5 or 6 bulleted questions about what the new role is, and then hit bang, and then it outputs the new job. And there's no rework, there's no customizing it, there's no triple checking whether it's got the right voice and is singing from the right song sheet and has the right information about the company. Sean already programmed the robot to do that with that voice. So and with all of that information. And so now you've got a tool, and you can think of just numerous different examples. I manage our sales team, and every day we're using this tool in empowering our people to be more productive in their work. And there's a lot of different, like, templated driven things where you can think of, hey, produce an email about this technology that I can send to a prospect to get them to come to a demo for this particular technology. And so I think you really want to think how to use this technology as a way to empower everybody in the organization by taking manual steps out of the process and just turbocharging people, making it so their job is a lot easier. And you get a more quality and consistent outcome down the road.
Yeah, excellent. Perfect.
All right.
So hopefully that was helpful, just to show you a little bit about how you can kind of, just in this kind of example or demo, how you can go create your own kind of custom GPTs. And then I don't know if we mentioned it, but there definitely is, if you have questions, add them to the question or the question section or the chat section in there, and we're happy to answer any kind of questions as we kind of go through this. So, okay, so here's our next use case that we're going to kind of talk about, which is using ChatGPT to kind of unlock writer's block and create a webinar title and abstract. So this will be an example. We're going to go through a lot of the same kind of information and kind of show you just some of this may look really familiar since you're on this webinar specifically, because quite frankly, we use ChatGPT to help us build out a lot of the stuff for this webinar, title and abstract and things. So in this example, we're going to decide on a webinar topic. We're going to give it 3 or 4 questions that we would like our webinar to answer for the audience. We're going to teach ChatGPT kind of our topic, the questions that we want answered, any kind of information about the audience that we're trying to attract. So who's kind of the target market for it. And, if there's any kind of word or character limit, for different platforms that we're going to be using, we'll be able to kind of show how we use that as well. And then I like this: edit, correct, and embellish the title and abstract. And then we're going to publish it and attract or attach it to the webinar. So let's go dive into this little demo as well. So we're going to unlock writer's block and create a webinar title, but this could be, we're doing it for a webinar. You could do it for a blog. You could do it for email. You could do it for any kind of customer interaction. You could do it for internal teams. The list is kind of unlimited, right? So you can see here where we're telling this GPT or ChatGPT here you're an expert level marketing genius. So we're establishing its kind of persona here a little bit. And we're telling it, hey, we're going to write a webinar title and abstract to attract leaders of businesses that are small, medium, between 11 and 200 employees. The webinar title and abstract should be 120 words. Our topic, AI, GPT, next level prompting. And the webinar should answer the following questions, and you can kind of see those questions down below. So all of this is the input, and so this is part of this prompt engineering that we're doing to get the results out that we want, that are really kind of tailored for us. So you can see the title that ChatGPT came up with, which is Unlocking Business Brilliance, Mastering AI GPT Next Level Prompting for the SMB, and the abstract that it wrote. So good prompting, good direction. We told it that it was a marketing genius, and this is what it came up with. Now, the next slide here is we're going to do it a little bit different. And so this one is more about using an existing kind of title and abstract and how we can then leverage it to go create content for some different kind of platforms or uses. And so in this example, we could have used, hey, tailor this for LinkedIn or tailor this for, Facebook, or we use GoToWebinar. Obviously, we're all on a GoToWebinar. And so we were using GoToWebinar's kind of copy or characteristics and character limits to help us with this one. So if you'll go to the next slide, we'll kind of dive in here and show you what we were asking it. So the first thing we did was say, hey, are you familiar with GoToWebinar's character limits? Because we don't want to generate copy and content if it doesn't fit inside the character limit of the platform that we're using. Clearly, ChatGPT understands GoToWebinar's character limits. And so it gives us what the rules are for those kind of character limits. And we're like, perfect. Please review the following webinar title and abstract. And so you can see here where we prompted it and said, here's our title and abstract. Please use this and go create us enhance it for us, make it better than what we have. So we can see we've got our title, we've got our abstract. And so this is stuff that we are prompting ChatGPT with. We're telling it all of this information. And so if you click next for me, Ted, it will kick us down and you'll see that it recreated our title for us, recreated our abstract inside the, using GoToWebinar's, character limits and its information as it rebuilt this information for us. So we end up with content that fits into those requirements and is custom for this webinar.
Yeah, so I just a couple comments on this because I use ChatGPT for stuff like this all the time. So this is like and just a comment, like this is like a little bit meta. We weren't trying to be cute or super meta with this whole thing where we're using ChatGPT to help us produce content about a webinar about ChatGPT. The reality is we produce a webinar every month, and for the past year we've been using tools like this as a turbocharger for our team. And so literally, like the screenshots that Sean just shared were the screenshots that Nathan, who's our marketing manager, used to actually produce this webinar. And a couple comments that one, look how smart it is to help you be like super productive. Like, hey, can you please rewrite this with the right length that fits on GoToWebinar? I mean, the hardest thing to do often with writing is make something short. And here the robot is doing the hard work, which is, hey, rewrite this thing with the same punch, but make it so it fits the character limit for GoToWebinar. I mean, that is like a killer app for anybody who has to write copy or do marketing stuff. That's a killer app. And then the other thing is that you can really like bang on this thing to get it to, tweak the voice. So, sometimes just give it a very generic request, I sometimes really don't like the voice that it's giving me back, and it's kind of like goofy, too many explanation points, and you can tell it, hey, take it in this direction, and it will rewrite it. And again, it's not you slaving over the copy anymore. It's you just telling the robot to rewrite it, and that's like so amazing. So
Yep. Excellent.
uh, yeah, and so like this is real. I mean, this is like the real example of some of the ways we boost the productivity of our marketing organization internally here at SnapTech IT. So I'm going to pick it up from here and go through a couple other use cases. Want to remind everybody, if you've got questions for Sean, questions for me, drop them in the Q&A section in GoToWebinar, and we'll try to address your questions as we go along. Okay, let's change gears. So we just saw an example of how you can use ChatGPT or generative AI tools to kind of start from scratch. I mean, you can literally just start there staring at a blank page. It's the old thing where you have like writer's block. Well, this page ain't going to fill itself. I just got to start typing. But now it does. So he just showed an example of how you don't have to struggle through that writer's block. You can get started quite easily. Now that being said, I've worked with a lot of people over the past year on different marketing projects, and some folks know how to use this tech and some people do not. And one of the big problems is if you don't give ChatGPT insights and knowledge and your own analysis, or you don't know what to feed it. Like Sean knew, like if we go back to the example of the job description GPT that Sean built, Sean knew that like our cultural statement and our website were the two most relevant things to feed ChatGPT for it to produce a consistent on voice message, right? So Sean had to know that, what to give it. And sometimes if you have colleagues or people on your team who are using this technology, you've got to really encourage them that you have to lead the process. You have to feed. I think we use the term spoon feed or feed the ChatGPT, and for you to get a result that you're going to be happy with, right? And what I've found is with a lot of like writing projects, you really got to do the same thing. That if you're trying to write blogs, for example, and you say, write me a blog about SEO, or write me a blog about single sign-on. Let's take a technical topic for the IT folks in the room, right? Write me a blog about single sign-on. It's going to produce a blog about single sign-on. But if you take for us as an example, we need to write a blog about single sign-on and how it applies to organizations that have between 20 and 500 employees that have these different issues, and it's probably going to be deployed and managed by a managed service provider. For it to produce a blog, you've actually got to give it some outlines and insights and put some boundaries around it, or even give it the actual outline of what you want it to say. Okay, so ChatGPT doesn't eliminate intelligence, knowledge, experience, wisdom. Mm-hmm. It doesn't eliminate any of those things. It simply turbocharges the productive output of people and does a lot of writing work for you. So I'm going to show you two examples here of where just in the recent past month, I was able to crank out 2 blog posts in probably 80% less time than I traditionally would take for me to actually write a piece. So I'm going to explain how we did this. So we're going to actually take as an example the webinar we did last month, which was cyber insurance essentials for business owners. And I'm going to show you how I created a blog from that webinar with all of the knowledge and wisdom we shared on that webinar. And then we were able to quickly produce a blog that I was able to post to LinkedIn and then post to the SnapTech website. Okay, I'm going to show you how we went about doing that. And so this is really what I would encourage you. You want to use ChatGPT as a way to turbocharge your people, increase your productivity and your output, but you've got to give it actually real knowledge in many cases. So let's show you how we did this. So every time we do a webinar, we always record it on GoToWebinar. We take that recording, we load it up to YouTube. One of the things you can do with any sort of audio content, a podcast or a video, is you can take the file and feed it into a transcription tool. And so one thing we've been doing for quite a long time is we take our webinars after we record them and we load them up into a transcription tool. In our case, we use a tool called Nota, N-O-T-T-A, and it'll take basically an hour-long webinar and it will create a whole transcript of the event. So you have all the text, first of all. It's not perfect. I mean, there are things it misses. There's flubs that people might make on the live actual recording that it doesn't come out perfect. But what it does is it comes out with a product that's actually good enough. And in this case, so what we did is there's a cool feature in Nota where it takes the whole call, or it takes the whole webinar in this case, and then gives a summary of what were the key takeaways. And so that's this text box you see up in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. Is it gives this summary. And so then what I did is I then took this summary, I copy and pasted it, and then I went over to ChatGPT and I fed it into ChatGPT and I said, expand on the key takeaways from our recent webinar by drafting a 500-word blog that expands on these topics. And then I just pasted that transcription summary that is also leveraging AI. So the Nota tool has its own kind of AI capabilities, and it produced a really solid summary. And I dropped it in there and then said, okay, now write me a blog. And then ChatGPT actually produced a 500-word blog. And it was freaking pretty awesome. I mean, it was like pretty spot on. And I probably needed to spend, maybe another 20 or 30 minutes adding in some things that it missed, or adding on some additional insights that I thought needed to be reinforced. I also, just from a process perspective, there were a couple like jargony terms that we used during the webinar that I wanted to give a more accessible definition to it. So that's another couple things I plugged into the blog. And then within short order, I was able to produce a very nice summary of the blog and of the webinar, and in blog form, and super accessible, super good summary. You could read this and kind of take away probably the 5 or 6 or 7 like biggest ideas we had from the webinar and get it in written form. We put it on LinkedIn, we put it on our website, on our blog section, and we're off to the races. And so this is a really nice example of using the tech as a way to really, of course, make me more productive in producing the content, but really it's our content. It's like this is a live event that we produced with a really good guest speaker, and it's high quality content, so it's still ownable. So the big challenge with AI, I think, today is that everybody, and you see it happening, is that everything kind of gets kind of vanillaized, if you will, or it just seems people will try to represent very generic content as their own, and it's just not very compelling, and it's not really insightful. And so you really don't want to go down that. You don't want to fall into that trap. You want to really leverage your own interesting content. So let's look at another example of that. Let's go to another example. Oh, so so we're going to send you all a copy of these slides in PDF format, and you'll have access to the on-demand version on YouTube to come back to. But if there's somebody on your team and you want to kind of give them their marching orders, or say, hey, here's the big insights we took away. So here was the recipe. Host and record your own events. So start recording everything. Record more internal meetings, record interviews, record client interviews, whatever. Feed the recording into a transcription service like Nota, tidy it up, grab the call summary, feed the call summary into ChatGPT, ask it to write the blog, edit the blog, make corrections, expand where necessary, and then bang, you're done. Put it on your blogging platform. So that's your recipe on how to use ChatGPT to expand on your webinar program by producing a blog about every single webinar you produce. Let's look at a different example. So in this case, similar sort of workflow. Last quarter, we hosted a Lunch and Learn series in 3 different cities across the United States on cyber liability insurance again. And we had a local expert in each city. And I took the event that I thought was the best, which was our guest speaker in Walnut Creek, California. And I looked through his slides. I was there at the event, co-hosting it. So I knew kind of what resonated with the audience. I knew the topics that got a lot of Q&A interest from the audience. So I had a lot of like insights into like the biggest takeaways. And I didn't just like copy and paste. I didn't just copy and paste all the text from our guest speaker's PowerPoint. I went through and actually created an outline. But I did copy and paste some textual elements from the slides. But I knew how to kind of create an outline of what I thought were the biggest takeaways from the live event. And I just simply created an outline. And this is one of those things where I don't know if people know this or that you're able to do this, but if you give ChatGPT a really good outline, you can say, write me a white paper or write me a blog, and it will embellish. And I mean, it'll of course write it for you, but it will pull in a lot of other additional information. But you still have to, if you want the final product to be on message and hit the thesis that you actually have or the takeaways you want to have, you need to give it the outline. But the difference between writing an 800-word blog and writing a 200-word outline, it's kind of like night and day. Like you can bang out the outline rough and ready, pretty quickly. Refining something to come up with an 800-word blog post is something altogether different. But that's what I did here. Microsoft Word, created the outline, had the PowerPoint handy, was at the event, so I could add my own value to it, my own insights. And then I took that and then fed it into ChatGPT and said, hey, produce a blog, 800-word blog that, takes into account these different insights and from our outline. And then it created this 800-word blog. Again, I had to do a little bit of editing, and then but there we have our final product, finished product, and we're able to put it right out onto LinkedIn and onto our website. And again, we're off to the races. So again, here's our recipe. Whether you're doing in-person events or you did a trade show or you did a client appreciation event, take photos and make really own your event, right? You have your events, and then make sure you take photos, summarize the PowerPoint presentation, summarize your own insights, summarize your own takeaways, feed the outline into ChatGPT and ask it to write a 500 or 800-word blog. You then need to still add value and do your own edits, and then boom, you have a finished product. So hopefully this kind of hit home on the point. That you really need to kind of have your own point of view, your own thesis, your own voice, your own personas, and you really need to feed the tool to have it actually produce something that is accessible, high quality, and is really speaking to what you're trying to do. So with that, let's kind of take a couple questions. So the first one comes from Rick. Will company data loaded into a custom GPT be on the web for others to access and use? Sean, I don't know if you want to take that.
Yes, the short answer is yes. So I would not load anything, proprietary or secret information into this tool. I guess the only really exception is, and this is something that we've been kind of playing around with a little bit, and you can go stand up your own GPT server and a platform like Azure. And so if you do it that way, then the information that you're loading and teaching that model is proprietary and it's not shared out on the web.
Yeah, and I think if you look at the different use cases that we shared in today's session, we had it look at job descriptions that we were already posting. We had it look at our website, and we we already took events that a webinar that we have posted on YouTube. We had an event we did in public. So we're really creating in all the the examples we gave, we kind of like, we're taking stuff that's already public, already we're happy to be public, and we're saying,
Mhm.
hey, can we use this technology to, tweak it and, create different versions of it, which is commonly what you want to do. So, but you do need to be super careful. I mean, this technology, where it's headed, is there are a lot of ways to leverage generative AI, to feed it again, like in private. There's a lot of things you can. And Sean, maybe you could comment on this. I mean, some of the things that are, I mean, especially us in the IT services world, we're trying to find ways to leverage all the insights and knowledge we have about how to support people's IT. We have tremendous internal knowledge of tickets and problems we solve every day, and we're working on ways to responsibly use AI as a way to harness all this internal knowledge we have as a way to make our technicians, super productive in how they support and handle, responses from clients and users.
Right. Yeah, just a high level use case that that we're playing around with a little bit. And again, it's about standing up our own GPT server in Azure, but the concept of being able to extract like the issue out of a service request that kind of comes in, feed it into our GPT that's a private one that only we have access to the data, that we have taught and we have loaded our internal SOPs or standard operating procedures. We've uploaded, different, outcomes for certain tickets. And the idea and concept is, hopefully we're able to get to a spot where by the time one of our engineers gets to an issue, a potential solve is already there for them in the internal notes of our service request that comes in. So our whole goal is to just, how can we speed up and provide better quality and faster service to our customers. So that's one of the things that we're working on and kind of thinking about as we kind of leverage this technology.
Yeah, and it kind of riffs on the one of the core themes we've shared throughout today, which is this technology is all about marrying the knowledge and
Mm-hmm.
value you already have in your business with more productive ways of creating content or creating answers or creating insights for your team to still be a human. Like, it's like we're gonna that it's
Right.
still gonna be a human being who's gonna be handling that ticket and be on the other end of the phone with our client and their employees. But our goal is to turn those techs into supermen and supermen and women, with this tech,
Mm-hmm.
because they're able to solve problems that much more quickly because they've got the answers at their fingertips. Because we have this vast database of knowledge about all the times we've solved this problem in the past, but how do we surface it in a way to the tech so that they're super productive and faster than we already are today in solving
Yep.
client problems. And the same goes for, whether you got people on staff who are blogging or writing job descriptions or, writing white papers or, communicating with your clients and the sales team. It's just all about turbocharging people. But you really have to know where the gold sits inside of your organization and where you already have like a lot of knowledge. I mean, if you don't have a webinar program, you're not going to be able to create blogs about your webinar program with ChatGPT. Or if you don't have an in-person program, or if you haven't thought through how you want to make really good job descriptions, then this tech really won't help you. You have to like leverage the tech and incorporate it with your own insights from your organization. So I'm not seeing any other questions. Let me do one last call for questions. We'll gladly entertain another question. We want to tell you about next month's webinar. This is kind of like the quarter of artificial intelligence for us a little bit. So next month we're going to be delving into Microsoft Copilot. So Microsoft Copilot is Microsoft's generally available AI assisted capability that you can turn on and enable in the Microsoft 365 platform. We're using it today internally at SnapTech, and we're in active discussions with lots of our clients about how to, enable this technology and start leveraging it. And this is kind of going to be more of a 101 session on Copilot. So, what are the 5 to 10 best use cases already that we're seeing are making a real difference in employees' lives and their personal productivity, and the outcomes that companies want to see out of some of this tech. So keep an eye out. We'll of course email you an invitation, but you can go ahead and snap that QR code and register right away because the reg page is live. I'm not seeing any other additional questions coming in. And then if you liked what you heard on today's webinar, we'll definitely send you copies of the slides in PDF format, and we'll direct you to the YouTube version of today's webinar on demand that you could potentially share with a colleague. And if you want to have a chat about any of this technology and you're an existing client, feel free to talk to your account manager and get us plugged in for a follow-up conversation. So Sean, any final thoughts before we wrap today?
No, hopefully this was useful, and you guys learned a little bit. Hopefully we're slightly entertained. There's lots of kind of material and information out there about different prompts and creating personas in GPT. We wanted to kind of take the approach of showing some actual use cases. So hopefully you guys found that valuable, and come back next month, and I'll show you how I haven't written an email from scratch or responded to an email from scratch in over a month.
Right. Will a robot show up for the webinar, or will it be Sean?
Well, we'll see.
Stay tuned to find out. Okay. Well, we're really thrilled about how this technology is helping us day to day, and we see a huge part of our mission is helping our clients, unlock the value in this tech. So please join us again next month. If you got value out of today's session, we'll be talking about Microsoft Copilot, and we look forward to seeing you on a future SnapTech IT webinar. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks, everybody.